in a haunted house. I have an amazing wife. I love my life. But I know that out there, the further I get from me, the world's rough. And it needs haunted houses. It needs people in haunts who are able to release that valve for others. Haunted houses make you more aware of your environment. That is customers and that is actors. A lot of my viewpoint is from the actor viewpoint. I worked in a year-round haunted house for 10 years in Orlando, Terror and Church Street and Skull Kingdom. And in those shows, I really got to learn about people. Because when people go through a haunt, you see how they react to stress. You see what they do. You see how they treat others. And it's remarkable. But also, the simpleness of, right now, this is about half of our world. It's this big. Our world, about half of it, maybe 3/4, is this freaking big. This is how we talk to others. This is how we see the world and form our opinions. That sucks. Okay? But in a haunt, you learn to pay attention. It's remarkable. There are people that I know have the brains of catfish. But when I see them walking through the haunted house, right? They're walking through and they're like, oh, someone's gonna jump out there. And they're mapping it out like they're trying to survive. You know? And I love that. But they notice physicality. If an actor has good physicality, the guest knows when they're going to attack or when they're going to swing or lunge forward. And the guest starts moving, which is what the actor wants. You know? It's that relationship that you notice what they're doing. You see the movement. They're about to spring. They're about to swing at me. I'm the target. I better get out of the way. And that's when the dance is working perfectly. Those are wonderful moments. I've also seen guests go through haunted houses and they'll notice the music. They're like, oh, the music changed. That's not good. That's not good. Something's going to happen. It's not good. Those are things, those environmental changes. If we were better at noticing those things on the highway, there'd be less car accidents. You know, if more people went to haunted houses and polished those skills, noticing the body language. For the performer, it's very important to notice the body language of the guest to know who are the ones who are scared and who are the ones who might want to swing at you. And those are things you have to watch for. I think that if you do a couple seasons of haunt as an actor, you come out being able to read people in all kinds of situations. To a whole other degree, how many times in your haunted house or going through a haunted house do you catch people looking for motion sensors? They're like, oh, that's a motion sensor, step right there. Or that's a beam break. You know, if you hit that, that thing goes off. And 2 hours ago, they were walking down the sidewalk doing this. You know? But the environment that we create is spurring them to notice every single detail. There's magic in that. Because those skills that they gather in the haunt, maybe they will learn to be a little more aware of their environment and what's going on around them. The world is magic. I only have like half an hour, but I'm a talker, so I'm going to go through these. Haunted houses make you feel alive. All right, here's a sentence for you. An antelope never feels better or more alive than when it just got away from a lion. That is, I don't know if you ever watched videos, but I swear there's a special little leap that an antelope does after it gets away from a lion, and they feel like they are all that. And I see customers do it when they get out of the haunted house. During COVID, they did a lot of study on how people were handling lockdown. And the people that handled it best were horror fans. They were people who mentally prepared themselves for dark times and saw enough stressful situations where they did not react as stressfully to it. Those are the ones who handled that lockdown and those stressful situations better. That is 100% what happens in a haunted house. It is a it's an exercise for you to feel like you're being hunted, for you to feel like you're in danger. And if the actors creeping out from around the corner and out of hiding spots in a haunt helps one person walking down the street recognize that predatory behavior in someone they see over there and cross the street early, or catch up to a friend, that's awesome. That's a cool thing. And that's what we're doing this for. There's no reasons for haunted houses to exist. When I talk to people from other countries, there was a guy who I worked with from Jamaica, and he said, you make places where people go to get other people to scare them. Floored. Didn't make any sense. Now he works for haunted houses and builds them, by the way. But the energy in what we do, the power in what we do, and how it makes people feel alive, the guests, that's why they come back. Maybe in life they're not winning. Maybe in life they feel like they're not surviving. But while they're with us, we make sure that no monsters get them. We make sure that the jaws just miss. We make sure they get away and they can do that little antelope gazelle leap at the end of the show. And their lives are better for it. Gotta watch my time. Haunts are the best possible first date. I would put thousands of dollars on that. How many relationships have I seen start in a haunted house? And how many have I seen end in a haunted house? If you are a young lady and you are on a date in a haunted house, and I say this because I have seen it happen, and your date picks you up and throws you at the monster in a yeet-like fashion, like full on through the air sideways, would have hit the ground if the monster didn't catch him. And he did this like 8 times. So there's so many factors to this, right? The couple goes in, boom, it gets dark, it gets scary. Tunnel of love effect from the 50s, they get a little closer together. You know, it's okay that I have my hands on you, you know, and we're going through this dark space. And someone jumps out. Someone's getting a little too intense. Does that date move you to the side and slightly get in between you? That tells you something. They're a little protective. Does that date throw you down and go assault the actor? That also tells you something. Maybe a little too much. He doesn't know what's real and what isn't. But all of those things can be seen in how people react to stress. And I think most relationships would be better if they had gone through a haunted house a couple times when they first started dating. That would be a wonderful thing. Haunted houses turn people into lions. I talked about the antelope, and that's the customer. I'm going to talk now about the actor. I'm going to say this as gently as possible. People are getting less grit, less physically tough, from what I can tell. We're a softer, kinder people. That's great. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's some personal toughness that's missing. It's very hard the way that we are bombarded with information and we get news now in a constant cycle. It's very difficult for you to build any confidence in what's happening right now and in yourself. People are generally less confident. Am I wrong, or I only heard the term anxiety maybe once every 3 years up until I was 45? And now I hear the word anxiety every day. That's not a bad thing. It's we have too much information that we're getting from all these different sources, and we can't trust any of it. That's how the world is. That causes problems. How do you fix that? I can make a 10-year-old girl terrifying by putting her in a haunt, getting her in some zombie makeup, teaching her how to move, and then she walks out of the set. The lighting is right, the room is backing her up, the sound is backing her up, and grown men piss themselves trying to run away in time. I've seen it happen. And do you think that child's confidence is through the roof? Like, I totally have a confidence problem. That's because I started haunting at 10 years old. 10 years old, I went to the first haunted house that I knew of, and I walked down and I said I'd like to scare people. And they gave me a spider on a fishing pole. And by the way, it's the most unsafe thing ever. They brought out a ladder and said, go up here in this roof. They moved a ceiling tile and sit on the wall, which is this wide. Sit on the wall. Don't step there. That's a drop ceiling. You'd fall over. And if you have to pee, walk down the wall like a tightrope and pee in the corner because the building's about to be demolished. I couldn't get out until they brought a ladder to let me down. So I was there all night, but I had my spider on my fishing pole. And when the groups walked under, 10 years old, I would drop it and scare the crap out of them. And my gym teacher went through. Our school, when I was a youngster, we had one teacher the whole time except for PE. And we were not friends, my PE teacher and I. So only that time did I drop the spider down on the group. He fell to his back on the ground, and I laid the spider on his chest, and he got the willy shakes, where he couldn't move and really do anything, and I leaned down just enough through the hole so he could see it was me. At that point, that was peak 10-year-old performance right there. And I knew I'm going to do haunted houses for the rest of my life. And I totally have. Totally have. 10-year-old me, I think, would be proud of what I'm doing today. On the other side of that, in that same vein, the actors that you just heard doing a big roar chant as they're getting ready to do the show, that's pride. That chant that you heard is a derivative of a haka, which is a Maori war dance. And why the haka came about is they're island people. And on an island, if you make war and you kill each other, there aren't enough people left to keep the island population going. All the men were dying in war. And they said, we have to change things. So they invented a war dance that they would do. They would come out and meet like on a field of battle, but it was a dance-off. And they would be as ferocious as possible during this dance. Until one would go, then the other would go, and then one would go, and the other would go, until one side yielded and say, you are more ferocious than us, you're more fierce. You win the war. And then they went home, and whatever they were fighting over was decided by that. I have drawn such inspiration from that, because what do we do but make mock war? We pretend to kill people, and we want to be as ferocious as possible as those guests are going through and going by us. So that haka version is something that we do at our show at Dark Hour. The confidence that I see come from young people in haunted houses, they do all right. If you have the confidence to be a weird and silly character in front of groups of people who come through, then you have the confidence to be a salesman and talk to people for the first time and get them to like a product and get them to like you. If you work in a haunted house and you learn all of the physicality that turns people off and makes them not like you, you can do that backwards and bring people in when you need to and support. also kind of for the world that we're living in. If you work in haunted houses, you know what someone in distress looks like. And then in the real world, if you see that, they're the first ones to help. That's what haunts are for. We're making freaking lions. They have enough aggression to ask for what they need. I think that people who work in haunts, they're going to grow up and they're going to be more political and more active because they're used to speaking up. They're used to speaking out. That's something that we need. And that's, we're investing in our young people every time we do that. So here's another point. Regardless of your feelings of religion, to some folks, haunting is a form of ministry. And what a dangerous thing to say. But what we're doing is we're testing people. And I think one of the points of religion is to make sure that if you're tested, you pass. And that's what we do when they feel like an antelope who just got away from a lion. When I was at Skull Kingdom, we had a terrible time for a while. I was kind of in an actor-trainer role there. And we had a terrible time for a while. It was International Drive is where the haunt was. It's a big tourist area. And there would be religious groups would come out and they would have their pamphlets and they would harass our pamphlet people who were the devil. And that's always, I don't want my people being harassed. They're just trying to do their job. They were handing out flyers to get business for the haunted house. I said, I'll do it. So I dressed up and I would kind of get in these debates with them. And a big anchor of my debate with them was how much prayer I inspire in the haunted house. Almost every time that I jump out, someone yells Jesus Christ, or they yell, oh my God. I get that a lot, like a lot. And if you think about it, that's a prayer because they're asking for protection. It doesn't matter that it's for me. That might be the only time that they've spoken to God in a week. I made that happen. So that's another little feather that you can put in the haunted house's cap. I'm supposed to wrap up here in a little while. In haunted houses, in that the ministry, the way that I have built my life around haunted houses, I think it's important for the customers to know that someone in the dark is watching them. When they're going through a haunt, there's eyes on them. And we see what you do. And what makes a person a good person is if they're the same person in the light that they are in the dark. And I talked to the actors today. We had a full training session today from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. That I did with the performers. And in my last talk to them, I talked about, we're in a hotel, obviously, because we're from Texas, so we're not from here. So we're staying in a hotel. And when I went to sleep, I pulled the shade, I turned down all the lights, and the room was pitch dark, the way that I like it, except for one little blue light on that alarm clock. Couldn't see a thing in the room. Went to sleep. Got up a couple hours later to use the restroom in the middle of the night, and I could pretty much see fine from that one little light, because my eyes had adjusted. In the darkness, that light grew. That's what happens to these performers, these actors, these kids who we put into haunted houses. They go in there and they're afraid to show their light. They go in there, they start working at a haunt, and they're afraid to be who they really are. Because all a 15-year-old wants to do is blend in with all the other 15-year-olds. And that carries with you a long time. But you get into an environment like Woods of Terror or any of the wonderful haunted houses across the country who are accepting of people from different backgrounds and different beliefs, and we fold them all together, and in the darkness we let their light grow. That's what it's all about. That's my talk, guys. Eddie said I could talk about whatever I wanted, and that was it. I do have a few minutes if anybody has any questions for a haunted house actor trainer or just a guy who's been doing haunts for 39 years. Yes.
What are some online resources that I can use for training my actors if I'm not able to get someone like you to come out and visit and do the training in person?
So, online resources for training actors. One of the things that I do is I look up improv games, improv exercises, and I want improv exercises that focus on timing, and I want improv exercises that focus on character building. Beyond that, there really isn't a ton. What we have to do, though, you have to find things that are meant for other purposes and adapt it to what we need. Yes, the improv training. If you could get someone on staff at a Renaissance festival, it's a different type of acting, but there's normally a training course for them over a couple weekends where they do exercises, and those are a great place to mine for acting exercises. And here's another weird resource. Don't watch horror movies to get scarier, watch nature documentaries. Because horror movies have editing, and horror movies are about the moment. And a nature documentary, if you have an actor who can move like a wolf, that's going to unnerve people. Watch how watch how lionesses move when they're creeping up on people. Watch that motion and get that in your performers. And magic can really start to happen. Write this down. Real quick resource, okay? Here's something that you can tell performers quickly to alter their performance. It's 30% animal. And it's, you're doing good in this role, but I want you to be 30% cockroach. Yes, I know that you are a movie popcorn seller. That's your role because you're in the haunted theater. But if you acted like you were 30% cockroach, how much cooler would that be? Or 30% praying mantis, 30% spider monkey, 30% grizzly bear, 30% shark. That 30% makes a massive difference. And it's something they can think about and recognize, and they're part of that process. Any other questions? Yes, sir. What brought me to Plano, Texas? When I worked for the year-round haunted house, right? I was Skull Kingdom. You got vacation time like any other show. You got vacation time, any other job. And I would take 2 weeks off in the middle of October to go work at other haunted houses around the country. So I could learn more. So in 2000, I was at Spooky World. And then in 2001, I was at a haunt in Texas called the Adamsville Terror Complex. And when I was there, my wife went through the show. She didn't know she was my wife, but I immediately did. So after that show, what I'll even say, everything good in my life I've gotten from haunted houses, 100%, including my wife. I was a giant bat monster, quadruped stilt costume bat monster, and I didn't talk, so I couldn't talk to her. I knew I was going to marry her, but I couldn't talk to her. The first words my wife ever said to me, she was with a group of ladies. I charged the group, and all of them scattered except for her, so I got right up in her face, and she said, "You are beautiful." That's the first words she ever said to me. So I gave my email to a security guard at the haunt, because she was, back then digital cameras were new, and she was taking pictures with a digital camera. And I lied, and I said, the security guard said, this actor has no pictures of his costume, and you've been taking pictures of him. If you would share some of them with him through email, he'd greatly appreciate it. I ended every single email with a question, so she had to write me back. At the end of my time at that haunted house, I moved back to Orlando and finished up a project I was doing for Universal, making dinosaur stilt costumes, packed up my car and moved to Texas to pick up a job at a haunted house. And then I ended up at Plano, Texas after bouncing around a few haunts down there. Because now I'm going to stay in Texas because that's where my wife is. I would not have had that confidence if I hadn't haunted at a young age. Any other questions? All right, I think we're good.
Give it up again for Alan. What a great speaker. Well, all right, guys. So now we're waiting on dark. Needs to be a little bit darker for the Widgetaire to work properly. So probably here for the next hour, we're going to move around the midway, and we got a hat lady that makes haunted hats, and we got the gift shop. Move around out here, and then the band's going to play some, and then we'll do our parade. We've always been doing a parade for about 20 years. Come out and do a parade and have a really good time with that. Is there any questions before I leave? All right.
Would you mind, if anybody who wanted to, we could do some little acting exercises right over here?
That's awesome, yeah, if you want to. Anybody want some acting lessons right over here? It's free right over here.
Just the exercises that I do with performers all over the country. I can show you what they are.
All right, thanks for coming out, guys. Here probably about 8:30, we're going to be starting the parade.